The world is still beautiful when we're old. 8 different ways to look at life. Hello all my old friends. Have you ever sat in front of the window on a lazy afternoon, watching the gentle sunlight shining through the leaves, listening to the birds chirping somewhere in the distance, and wondered, will this world still be as beautiful as before when I'm old? It's not a new question, but it never gets old. As we get older, many things change. The body is no longer agile, memory sometimes plays hide and seek, children grow up, friends gradually disappear. Life seems to slow down. But it's in that slowness that we can look deeper, see more clearly the things around us. And you know what? The world is still beautiful, even more beautiful, if we know how to look. Today, I'll talk to you about 8 different ways to look at life, ways to help us rediscover the beauty of life, even when we're old. Not lofty advice, but simple, honest, easy to do, and down to earth, like a conversation between old friends. Let's start with the first thing: learn to be surprised again. When was the last time you were truly surprised? Not the kind of surprised by an unusually high electricity bill, but the kind of childlike wonder when a squirrel scurried from branch to branch, or when a wildflower growing by the roadside was surprisingly beautiful. According to research from the University of California, maintaining a sense of positive wonder, called awe, improves the immune system and reduces inflammation in the body. People who regularly experience this gentle wonder have higher levels of happiness. And the good news, you don't have to climb a mountain or go to a national park to get it. Take a walk in your neighborhood, but this time see everything as if it were the first time. Look closely at the leaves, notice the shape of the roofs, listen to the wind blowing through the trees. Every day can be an exciting journey if we open our hearts. I remember once walking in Forest Park in Missouri, I came across an old man standing quietly watching the lake. I asked him what he saw so intently. He just answered gently, "I'm looking at the sun reflecting on the water. It's like a living picture without a frame." So, the first thing to keep the world beautiful when we're old, let yourself be surprised again, every day. We gently move on to the second thing: learn to be grateful, not because life is perfect, but because it is still going on. It sounds simple, but being deeply grateful is not easy. When we are young, we are grateful for success, for opportunity, for love. But as we get older, gratitude becomes more subtle: gratitude for waking up in the morning, for still being able to walk, for having someone to call. I have a friend in Arizona who is 74 years old. Every day she writes down in a small notebook 3 things she is grateful for. One day it is a bowl of hot porridge, another day it is the kitten sitting next to her while she watches TV. That's it. But she says that after a few weeks, her mood has changed dramatically. She smiles more, is less irritable, and feels more meaningful in life. Science backs this up. Studies show that writing down gratitude can improve sleep, lower blood pressure, and increase feelings of optimism. Gratitude doesn't make things easier, but it does make us stronger when things are difficult. And from a place of gratitude, we will gradually see the beauty in things that seem very ordinary. Then there is another perspective, and perhaps the one that many of us wonder about: how can we still feel useful, still valuable? That is the third thing. At this age, we sometimes feel that we are no longer the center. Children are busy, society moves fast, technology changes every day. But the truth is, value is not measured by speed or novelty. Value lies in experience, in listening, and in the stories that only we can tell. An elderly woman in the suburbs of Portland shared a touching story with me. She lives alone, has no children, but every week goes to the local library to read stories to children. What started as a small idea from a volunteer has now become an expected activity. Children gather around her, listening to every word. She said, "I don't have much, but I have time, and I have stories. And that makes me feel truly alive." Feeling needed, even if it's just to water the flowers in the community garden, to call an old friend, is a way to keep our souls young. And from feeling useful, we open another door, which is the fourth thing: learning to forgive, not to forget, but to lighten ourselves. When we are young, we are quick to anger, to blame, both others and ourselves. But as we get older, we understand that holding on to anger or regret only makes us heavier. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, but letting go of the burden. It means saying to ourselves, I choose peace, rather than being right. I know this is not easy. There are deep wounds, misunderstandings that have lasted for years. But sometimes, just a text message, a phone call, or simply a nod in the mind is a first step. Neuroscience also shows that when we truly forgive, the brain releases chemicals that help reduce stress and increase happiness. I once forgave an old friend after more than 20 years of not talking. There was no touching reunion. I just wrote a letter, didn't send it, but read it to myself. And I felt much lighter. Try it, my friend. Forgive, not for others, but for yourself. So, together we have gone through the first ways to see life differently, being surprised again, being grateful, seeing ourselves as useful, and learning to forgive. Each thing is not a destination, but a door that opens to new things. And when your heart is a little lighter, your eyes are a little wider, let's continue with me to the next things that will make us love this life more, even when our hair is gray, and our steps have slowed down. We come to the fifth thing, something that is not new, but can change a lot of our perception of the world. Learn to live slowly and enjoy every moment. In the past, when I was young, I often heard adults say, live slowly, then you will understand. At that time, I did not understand. I thought living slowly was a waste of time. But now, when the days are no longer as rushed as before, I see, living slowly is not being slow, but living deeply. Have you noticed, when we eat a meal very slowly, chewing each bite carefully, we feel the sweetness of the rice grains, the aroma of boiled vegetables, the crispness of eggplant slices? Or when we sit and drink a cup of coffee without rushing, listening to the sound of the wind blowing through the leaves, suddenly we feel strangely peaceful. A study from Harvard University shows that people who practice mindfulness, which means living in the present, focusing on what they are doing, have higher levels of life satisfaction, less anxiety, and depression. Slow living does not require meditating or doing yoga every morning. It can be as simple as taking a few extra minutes in the morning to watch the clouds drift by, or enjoying the crunchy sound of biting into an apple. It is the art of being present. One afternoon I sat in a small park near my house, watching an elderly couple in their 80s. They didn't say much, just sat next to each other, holding hands. Occasionally, the wife would look up at the sky and point out a duck-shaped cloud to her husband. They would laugh, then fall silent again. No rush, no need for anything more. I thought, maybe that is living beautifully in old age, when small things are enough to move us. And when we learn to slow down, another thing will come naturally to us. The sixth thing is to reconnect with nature, not far away, just close. Nature is an old friend that we sometimes forget. But you know, old age is a great time to return to simple things like soil, trees, clouds, wind. Because now, we have time, something we always lack when we are young. An old man in Denver that I know, used to be an engineer, now retired and spends every morning taking care of a small garden in front of the yard. He grows yellow daisies, lavender, and some herbs like basil, mint. Every time I visit, he proudly shows off, look how fresh these kids are, they got some sun this morning. He calls the plants them as if talking about his children and grandchildren. Each growing branch and leaf is a small joy, each blooming flower is a story to tell. Not only is it a pleasure, contact with nature is also good for mental health. Scientists call it the natural restoration effect. Even just looking at plants through the window can improve your mood. If you don't have a garden, don't worry. Just put a small potted plant by the window, or simply take a walk in the park a few times a week. Listening to the sound of falling leaves, breathing in the gentle scent of flowers in the wind, all can soothe our hearts. And sometimes, in the midst of nature, we remember something we thought we had forgotten. The ability to create is always there, we just haven't named it again. Yes, the seventh thing in the journey to see life differently is reawakening the creativity in us, not to become an artist, but to live like a child who loves to explore and discover. A friend of mine in Seattle learned to paint in oil after he was 65. At first, it was just to kill time. But then she discovered that every time she picked up a brush, her mind was cleansed. She painted what she saw outside the window: an old bicycle, an old tree, a moss-covered roof. Not particularly beautiful, but soulful. And each painting, she wrote the date, like a diary in color. Creativity does not mean painting or writing poetry. Maybe you like to cook, knit, make pottery, take photos, tell stories, or even write letters to old friends. Every time you use your hands and soul to do something new, you are living creatively. And that creativity helps the brain to be flexible, emotions to be lighter, and memories to be maintained longer. A study at the University of Michigan shows that seniors who participate in creative activities are less likely to develop dementia. Why? Because when we create something, we are also renewing ourselves. And so, from living slowly, returning to nature, and then reawakening creativity, we gradually feel this life, no matter how many years have passed, still has many beautiful things to experience. But there is one last thing I want to share, the thing that will close the journey of 8 different ways of looking at life. It is simple, but also the most difficult thing: learning to accept, not surrendering, but going with life. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It is an art, the art of understanding that there are things we cannot change, but we can still change the way we react to them. There are mornings when I wake up and find that my legs are no longer as flexible as before. My back creaks a little, my hands tremble a little more. But instead of getting angry, I smile. Oh, my body is telling me that it has been with me for decades, and now it needs to be treated more gently. I once knew an old man in New York who had been a surgeon for over 40 years. When his hands began to weaken, he had to stop working. At first, he was very sad. But then, instead of locking himself in nostalgia, he started learning to play the piano, not to perform, but to feel the music. In the past, I used my hands to save people, now I use my hands to nourish my soul, he said. Accept that. Not to look at life with tired eyes, but to open your heart to see that you don't have to be like yesterday to be worthy of today. Many of us grow up with the idea that we have to always be strong, always be useful, always be able to do things. But as we age, that always begins to crack. And it is in those cracks that light can enter. We don't have to keep up with the fast pace of life anymore. We don't have to prove anything anymore. We have lived, and lived long enough to understand that every wrinkle is a memory, every scar is a victory. Acceptance is also when we forgive ourselves for the things we have not done, the mistakes of the past, or the opportunities we have missed. It is when we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I am still me, and I am good enough. Science also tells us this. People who are able to accept themselves, without judgment, without harshness, tend to have better mental health, live longer, and are happier. Why? Because they are no longer fighting with themselves every day. One afternoon I sat next to my grandmother, who was over 90 years old at the time. I asked her if she had any regrets. She smiled. Yes, I do. But I choose to keep the things that make me smile every time I remember them. The rest, let the wind take it away. Her answer was as light as the wind, and I still remember it to this day. And so, together we have gone through 8 different ways of looking at life, not to change the world, but to change the way we see it. Be surprised again like a child seeing a rainbow for the first time. Be grateful for the little things that exist every day. Feel that you are still useful, still have much to give. Forgive, not to forget, but to lighten your heart. Live slowly, to listen to your own breathing. Reconnect with nature, with the land and sky that have nurtured us. Reawaken our creativity. And finally, accept, to live true to yourself, gently and lovingly. My dear friend, if you have heard this far, I want to tell you something from the heart. Thank you for being in this world. Thank you for living, loving, experiencing so many years, and continuing to learn to look at life with gentle eyes. Old age is not the end, but a new chapter, where we write with slow, but emotional lines. Every day, you can still choose. Today, I will live beautifully, live enough, live truly. If there is anything in this video that makes you smile, please share it. Tell me what makes you feel that life is still beautiful. It can be a memory, a photo, or just a peaceful morning. And if you find what we just talked about meaningful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, so we can continue to accompany each other in the next stories. I wish you, whoever you are, wherever you are, living in winter or summer, always keep the light in your heart. And remember, this world is still beautiful, because you are in it. Goodbye and see you in the next videos.